Hey, hey, hey. If you are watching me here on YouTube, my name is Emmie from Emmie Evolving. Thank you for coming to watch me live. If this is your first time joining me, thank you. If this is not your first time joining me, thank you some more. Please subscribe to this channel and join me often. Click that notification bell and join me often. If you are watching me from Facebook, hey. Hey. So let me just get all my stuff situated. Let me try and get this situated. Hi everyone. So if hold on. It's very difficult for me. Hi Erin. It is actually very difficult for me to see your comments using Facebook because Facebook hides the comments from me when I'm live. Because I mean, heaven forbid I see what you guys are saying. Heaven forbid. Hi Adriana. So yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about soul journeys. Okay, soul journeys. Specifically, we're going to be talking about functional depression for starseeds. This is something that most starseeds experience this, you know? If we're going to be really honest with ourselves, most starseeds experience this. Most of us feel this painful ache within us, and it becomes crippling for some. It becomes very crippling. What do you guys think I mean by functional depression? You're welcome, Billy. She said, thank you for all the zodiac readings you do. You're always spot on. I sure hope I'm not spot on about some of the readings I did today. I just, but yeah, what do you guys think I mean by functional depression? Hi, Gigi. Because, you know, people usually think, you know, I'm depressed. And if I'm depressed, then I don't do anything but lay around and cry. And for some starseeds, that's what they do. For other starseeds, you're more functional. Meaning people don't really know what's going on within you. You're able to continue that human facade, play that role of functional human, going to work, doing the things you need to do, really just continuing the game of life, continuing in that rat race. Millie says being able to be aware while being in a still lifting state. Yeah. Yep. It's an awareness. Starseeds have a tendency to be much more aware than, you know, an average person. Much more aware. And in that awareness, it's just, there's a lot of pain involved. You know, the truth of where humanity is going, has gone, is doing, it's painful. It's painful for most starseeds. You know, we have this innate knowing of how humanity is supposed to be, where we come from, where we've been as souls, where we have been, and seeing how far we've fallen from that original state of grace can have very real, very viscerally felt ramifications. Most starseeds have a specific type of eye. People often comment to me like, you know, your eyes are, there's something about your eyes. Well, yeah, they're the windows to the soul. Silly. So yeah, there's times where I'm not actually depressed, like clinically depressed. I'm actually in a good mood. And then people will look at me and they're like, why are you sad? And I'm just like, what do you mean? Why am I sad? This is just me. I'm functional while depressed. It's this knowing how much I gave up in order to volunteer for this job here on earth. And if you remember more of where you came from, how far humanity has stepped down from that original neutral level of grace, love, compassion, co-creation. Yeah, that sadness will definitely be something that's just ever present. Does that mean you have to be medicated? Not always. What I've found is that most don't need to be medicated. Most are just struggling through very elevated levels of hyper awareness. They are extremely sensitive empaths. And as an empath, you feel things on such a deep level. Something that would, hurt someone else's feelings utterly guts you. It destroys you. It destroys you from the inside out. And, a lot of starseeds, not all, but a lot, will continue to look at the circumstance even after it's long gone. The event has already happened. It is done. It is finished. And you find yourself replaying that, rehashing it over and over and over in your head, hyperfixating on that one moment in time, simply because you are so aware of all the different potentialities that were presented in that one moment, and what was chosen was quite possibly the least compassionate, the least evolved. And there's this part of you that wants to go back and correct that, and you can't. You can't. It happened exactly as it needed to happen for everyone involved. And knowing more, knowing better, meaning, having a more evolved level of consciousness, doesn't give us the right or the authority to rob others of the experiences that will help them in their blossoming. And because there is because there's a very real struggle within us, it then can often present as like a depressive episode. It can present as like, I just can't relate to people. I don't want to be here. I don't like people. I don't want to be social. I don't want to be part of a group that doesn't even understand me and what I'm here to do. I don't even understand me and what I'm here to do. And so you have all these like really conflicting feelings within your mind, within your heart. And after a while, you just really are like, why am I even here? No one gets it. No one gets me. No one gets it. And I don't even understand why I have to be here. Who the fuck volunteered me for this shit? And then it amplifies that feeling of not belonging. Well, what if as starseeds, we have to experience that functional depression so that we can actually very, very deeply understand and understand the truth of the human condition? What if that's what we needed to do? Understand on a human level the human condition. The only way you're going to understand that on a human level is to become human, to live through it, to suffer the same things, feel the same losses. And maybe if we amplify that, those human feelings, then we can avoid having to experience that gravity of circumstance. So what if our deeper feeling, our ability to feel things on a much deeper level, is so that we don't have to actually live that gravity of an event, like that intense. What if it's another form of efficiency? Let's see. Sue Berry says, better to follow your heart than your mind. What if I tell you the heart doesn't seek to lead? What if I tell you the heart simply seeks to feel? Because the language of the heart is felt, not heard. What if? What if? And what if this depression is actually not a depression? What if it's not a negative thing? What if, as a starseed, depression is nothing more than an appropriate response to the travesty of the human condition? If really what's happening is our eyes are wide open and we're understanding fully. And it's the people who aren't bothered by seeing the very things that hurt us to our core. What if they're the ones that need to experience this functional depression? What if they're the ones that are in denial of exactly what humanity is going through? What if? You know, what if? Crass Stan says hearts can be buried anyway. Well, you know, so can the mind. So what do you follow? The monkey mind can be buried by doubt, self-doubt, self-hatred, self-sabotage, lack of self-worth. So then if the heart can be buried, the mind can be buried, what's left? The higher self, the highest expression of self, able to anchor into this planetary system we call Earth, the highest self. Sometimes you can reach Oversoul, sometimes you can reach Avatar, and if you have the proper coding for it, you can reach your Rishi. Rishi is the highest level of self that you can connect with while still in body. Rishi is actually the upper echelon of this 15-dimension time-space matrix. And so Rishi is still very aware of the gravity of the pain of being human, but at the same time is able to coexist with the knowing that a high-level dimensional being knows. They are unified up there. They aren't as divided. They don't exist within that archon paradigm that we do down here. They're not seeking to compete. And so when we label ourselves depressed, it's almost as though we're competing and we're losing. And honestly, I mean, is that a bad thing? To be losing at this game of human life? Because I remember, you know, a few years back, I totally was like, I'm never going to human right. I'm never going to understand humans. Because I am painfully aware that I'm a starseed. I'm painfully aware of this fact. And the things that I see, the things that I feel, the experiences, it hurts me to my core. And other people are just, yeah, well, that's, yeah. And inside, I'm sobbing uncontrollably, like, oh my God, how could you not care? How could you see suffering and not care? And so I came to the conclusion several years ago, I'm never going to human right. And I was so sad about that. And then in comes Michael, and he's like, well, because you were never meant to human right. Silly girl. You were never meant to human right. That was never part of your path. You were always meant to never fit in. And not be ashamed of that, because you stand as a template for others to begin rebuilding their own paths. And I was just like, that's deep. That's deep. You're rebuilding your own path off of simply watching me walk mine. What? That's scary. What if I do it wrong? What if I do it wrong? What if I do something wrong and then it affects your trajectory in a negative manner? And then in comes Michael again. What if that wrong is actually a right in someone else's eyes? Someone who lives such a convoluted life. So what if all these wrongs are actually rights? And if you just hold yourself accountable for everything, have no shame in speaking about these wrongs that you think you're living, and allow yourself to truly just experience this human path. Love everyone enough to decide for themselves exactly what they want to take from your journey. What snippets are they going to keep in their little pockets to use for later on? And then I was like, oh, wait, what? I'm not supposed to edit stuff? Like, I'm supposed to just let people decide what to get, what they want to use from my journey? And he was like, yes, you're of God. You're not God. You're of God. You stand as a mirror. And maybe if they see your sadness at the human condition, maybe if you have no shame in the fact that you have functional depression, which is actually not even depression. It's called being awake. So many people talk about, I'm woke, I'm awake. Are you sad about what's going on with this world? Are you? Because if you're not aware of what's going on in places like the Middle East, Africa, third world countries, if you're not aware that children are starving, are you awoke? And if you're aware of all those things and you can just shrug your shoulders and be like, the problem is too big for me to do alone, you feel no sadness, are you actually awake? Are you? Or are you using this term as some sort of badge of honor? Right, Billy. Like a river, a giver of hydration. Because really, star seeds, listen to that term, star seed. In order for a seed to grow, it needs to be watered. And well, what's going to water that? You don't want to cry because it's embarrassing to cry, because it's a sign of weakness. Well, what if I tell you that's a lie? What if I tell you it's in your tears that you cleanse away the filth of this existence, that you allow all of that muck to just be washed and cleansed from you? And it's your tears that actually water the seed within you, the seed of stars, so that you can once again grow and remember that within you are galaxies. What if? And what if functional depression is not depression, but rather that seed becoming a seedling, reaching deeper within, growing those galaxies with every tear? So we look at all these terms and labels and, it's all semantics, right? We're just playing with words. It's semantics. What are your thoughts on it? Christina Abbott says, what if you do it right? What if we recognize there is no right or wrong? What if there just is? What if there just is? What if in the grand scheme of things, Creator loved us so much, and when I say us, I mean all of creation, that the love freed us to be anything and everything? What if that's part of the journey? To recognize that we are unified in our diversity. And what if that's some of the reasons why we have functional depression as starseeds? What if? There's so many what ifs. And the truth of it is, all the answers to these questions already exist within you. And these what ifs are nothing more than catalytic triggers to remember your truths. And what if it's okay to be vulnerable? What if it's okay to admit that you're fractured inside? What if we recognize at some point those fractures are actually the locations from which the light within us that we try to hide so badly so we can fit in? What if those are the areas where our light spills out as a gift to the world? What if? Naeem says, Creator had his hands on me before the womb. We have such a limited understanding of what exactly Creator had intentions, had intended. And it's like, where we're like, okay, light is good, dark is bad. It's about love, love and light. We'll stick to love and light. Were you formed in light? Was there a spotlight on you while you were gestating in your mother's womb? Or were you concealed in the safety of darkness? Being formed in the secret of darkness, protected, safe. I don't see anything evil about darkness at all. And I don't necessarily feel all light is pure and good. In fact, I don't even subscribe to the very paradigm that created this sense of good and bad, good versus evil. That's a separation tactic. If God, Creator, is omnipotent, the most powerful, the highest of the high, and created everything, whether we understand why or not, God created darkness, dark things. And so just because you don't understand why, it doesn't make it evil. Just like because you don't understand the functional depression, it doesn't make it evil. And there's this term, dark night of the soul. You know, that's often used to describe functional depression. And sometimes the functional depression is barely functional. Okay. So the dark night of the soul, that's such a beautiful term. Such a beautiful term. The dark night of the soul. Where were you formed again? In the darkness of your mother's womb. It was like a dark night of the soul as you prepared to be birthed. Take that in. Like, really take that in. Functional depression is a dark night of the soul. In your mother's womb, before you came into physical being here on this plane, you experienced 9 months of a dark night of the soul. And then you were born into the light. Take that in. Take that in. Maybe that dark night of your soul is what's birthing a higher level of understanding. It's birthing a higher dimensional level of consciousness. Maybe it's in that suffering that you are really blossoming. Maybe it's just functional depression. And maybe whatever the hell it is, it's okay. Because it's a part of your path, and whether you understand it or not, it's there for a reason. And this is not to just be cliche. Whatever is put in your path is put there for a reason. Everything has a root causation. Sometimes that root causation extends before this life. And sometimes the following effect extends beyond this life, after this life. So you're not going to understand everything within one lifetime. Okay? You're just not. It's not meant to happen that way. But with functional depression, it gives you a much greater ability to take in all of these catalytic triggers of remembrance. Right, sad and happy, it's yin and yang. Yin and yang is the balance. The balance, it's a beautiful dance done in darkness. Y'all know that, right? Yin and yang is a dance of the dark. Let's see what you guys are saying. Okay. So Kimberly says, so we need dark so we have somewhere to shine our light. Purpose. We don't need anything. We don't need anything. We just are. We have dark and we have light because we are a totality. We're not one fractal of something. We are a totality within ourselves. We are a complete thought form of God. So we don't need dark. We are dark. And we have light. We just are. So maybe part of the functional depression comes from this misunderstanding of light and dark. We have everything within us. For every plane exists at least two poles. At least two poles. To complete that plane, you have to be able to swing between the poles. And so that's what we do. Now, do you really think you're going to reap the benefits of every motion and emotion, full range of motion and emotion, by crippling yourself halfway? If you're building muscle mass, you have to experience full range of motion. You can still build the bicep going like this, right? But if you full extension, full contraction, full extension, full contraction, my muscle, my baby muscle, that's much more efficient. And then guess what? You continue that full range of motion until the point of muscle failure. Ask any personal trainer who knows what they're doing. They will explain this to you. You do that full range of motion until muscle fails, and you will reap the most growth in the shortest amount of time. So is failure bad? Is it wrong? Because that's what we're taught, right? That if you fail, I mean, that's like the worst, being a failure. It's actually at that moment of failure that you're gifted with the opportunity to rise to the next level. I don't know if y'all are aware of that. And that pain of failing, again, if we make the analogy of physical fitness, that pain of failure, muscle failure, excuse me, is actually quite indicative of the amount of tearing done. You're literally tearing your muscle. You're overloading it to the point of failure, meaning there's enough tears that the muscle can't do it anymore. It's failed. But here's the beautiful thing. In that failing, in that tearing, the injury, the body knows exactly what to do. It sends the nutrients needed to rebuild that muscle, to repair the tears. So with every tear that you have, you're going to go ahead and fill that with the nutrients, the proteins that are necessary to repair that tear. And guess what? You're now growing that mass, growing the muscle mass. So is failure bad? Is being wounded bad? Because I had been criticized previously. Some lovely individual decided that they were going to launch some sort of campaign, Tear Emmie Down campaign about I'm a wounded healer. Fuck yes, I'm a wounded healer. Fuck yes, I am. I had to have ridiculous levels of trauma in life in order to be the soft person that I am today. I had to. I had to. Because in that beating me down, destroying me, all these wounds, all these tears, it fortified me. Absolutely fortified me. And in that functional depression, what happened? I fully opened my eyes. And I saw full gravity of what I'm here to dismantle. I'm just saying, you know, is being wounded bad? No. Nope. Being able to accept the fact that you have been wounded and you are still standing, that's fucking badassery. That is a warrior right there. That's a warrior. And you know, one of the most beautiful things, and I can say this with so much love for myself, I am a wounded warrior that still continues to adhere to the code of Bushido. That's enough said. Enough said. That despite the fact that I have the capability of destroying you, if you cannot defend yourself against me, I will not engage you. You are not a worthy adversary. I will only engage that which has the capability to destroy me back. Life with honor, Bushido. And when you live a life of Bushido, you know who you are. So when others come to try and tear you down, your opinion of me is none of my business. I know who I am. I'm centered in my truth. And my truth is rooted in the soils of Bushido. And if you guys don't know what that is, they are the tenets that samurai had to live by. And people are like, I'm a ninja, I'm a ninja. I'm not no fucking ninja, yo. Ninjas have no honor. They crawl around in the darkness, cover their face. Samurai are like, I'm here. What's up? Hey, I'm Bushido. Nope. I'm not no fucking ninja. If we're gonna go at it, we're gonna go at it. I'm gonna come at you from the head. I'm coming at you from the head. And if I engage you, that means I've already followed every possible string. I know how I'm going to win this. You're a worthy adversary, and I'm going to show you how I will win this with honor. And that's fine. That's fine. Is that going to add to my functional depression? Hell yeah, it is. Hell yeah, it is. Because despite the fact that I know I can be victorious in that battle, it's still, as a star seed that is fully awake and aware of this human condition, it hurts me to my core to know that you are wasting time with this false king of tyranny mindset, this division, separation, this competition, instead of joining me in co-creation, instead of celebrating who you are, because I already celebrate who you are. I see through to the core of you, and I see something so beautiful that I would never, ever, ever think to attack you for no reason. I will defend myself. But to attack you, to try and tear you down, that's such a waste of sovereign power. That is a misuse of free will. That is a root causation of miasmic distortions. That's karma. Karma is not punishment. It's not. These are moments, decisions that we've made, the energy that gave action to that thought, frozen in time. So that when we're done with that false king of tyranny mindset, we can once again analyze, okay, what could I have done in this moment that would have further propelled that Christ consciousness into fruition? What could I have done? It's not like, oh, you did bad and you know, but still, it's part of the human mindset. And as star seeds, we're not, consciously speaking, we're not fully human. You know, I mean, that there's just no way around it. If you don't know what a star seed is, it's someone who has a greater amount of galactic coding than human, terrestrial human coding. And so you can reach much higher levels of dimensional consciousness, much higher. I'm starting to sweat, y'all. I'm starting to sweat. Oh my God, my neck is itching. So, oh, that's a very good question. Billy says, is Source hurt or wounded by us feeling wounded or being wounded? Or does Source just hold compassion for our growth? We are Source. Source wanted to experience this from different vantage points. We are Source. We are parts of Source that was once whole and then began to expand. And as it began to expand, it began to fractionate. And as it began to fractionate, it then began to drop in density, drop in frequency into density. And as it began to drop in frequency, drop in dimensional levels, at a certain point, it then became individuated. We then developed morphogenetic templates, which gave us the opportunity to experience any given event in an individuated manner. Apartheid filters were created and put into place so that we could filter out the experience of our neighboring consciousness. Individuality is it's an illusion. It's an illusion. I'm able to access parts of you that people shouldn't be able to access, shouldn't be able to access, because I've transcended that illusion. I know you're me and I'm you. And whatever you're attempting to do to me, it's an external reflection of an internal circumstance. You're standing in front of me calling me evil. It's because there's a part of me that wonders, am I evil? Are the things that I can do, the things that I remember, is that evil? Do I need to feel sadness about this? If you feel sadness, then yeah, you need to feel sadness about it. Because the avoidance of the emotions, the very emotions you came into this life to experience, that you were led to this circumstance to experience, avoiding that does nothing but guarantee the circumstance will circle back around and happen again, in hopes that you're more ready to accept it later on. And if you're wondering, like, why does my life just keep repeating the same cycles over and over and over again? Because that's what we're choosing. Why do dark things happen to me? Well, because you refuse to learn it in the light. So then your higher self requested dark tutors come in to help you learn this lesson. It's like, damn, Emmie, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. I can't believe people treat you this way. Well, because I allowed it. Because I was refusing to learn that lesson. So what you're seeing people do to me, that's what I'm doing to myself internally. In here, in here. Those are the thoughts, the feelings, the energy that I bottle up and package all nicely behind a smile. And this holds true for everyone else as well. This absolutely holds true for everyone else as well. Like, whether you want to admit it or not, there are so many parts of you, of who you are, what you've lived through, that you absolutely will never, ever, ever want to show anyone else. And at some point you will show it. At some point it will come out. And it's at that point that you will realize you are actually awake. And I had told people before, like, I never had an awakening. I was just born awake. I was just born awake. Like, I've just always been this way. I don't quite understand what you guys mean with the whole awakening thing. And people don't understand what I mean by this. Well, if you were born in a third world country, in poverty, you know what suffering is. You feel it viscerally. You experience it. That's your reality. And whether you're transplanted into a more comfortable life later on or not, your formative years, if they are spent in an environment that contains so much human suffering that the people, it's commonplace, and they're like, that's just life. And it's like, yeah, that is just life. That's what I was born into. So as I was born, I was already awake. There were no blinders. There was no shielding me from mountains of garbage, from squatters, from people who barely are living, but still manage to smile. There's no shielding me from that. I mean, take that in. Take that in. How do you have a moment of awakening if at the moment of your birth, there's already so much suffering? There's already so much of that you're feeling, even before you're cognitive enough to express that you don't understand what the fuck is this place that I'm born into. And you guys are probably like, well, as a baby, you don't really know that there's like, poor. You don't have any concept of that. Okay, well, as a baby, like, it was a traumatic birth. Like, my mother almost died. She had to have an emergency C-section and full hysterectomy. to keep her from dying. And I was born early. I was torn from my sanctuary of darkness before I was ready to come out. And then thrust into a world of poverty. Do I see myself as a victim? No, I see myself as very fortunate that I was gifted with being awake from birth, from recognizing all of this suffering from birth, because in that moment where it was trauma from the start, my first breath on, I knew I would never, ever, ever allow myself to become a part of this system. And I didn't recognize that until way later. But regardless of what you recognize and when, these are the facts of who you are, what you come here to do. And functional depression or not, everything in your life serves its purpose. Every emotion, every season and phase that you experience, it's all ushering you towards one thing, a return to your greatness, a birthright that no one else can take from you, that doesn't diminish someone else's birthright. This is just for you. And let's just go ahead and say it. You know, people are like, God is just so giving and compassionate and loving and everything positive. No, this is a selfish moment. The God fractal that exists within us, that seed of God that exists within the human vessel, through that entire life is experiencing a selfish moment. I want to feel this. I don't care what the monkey mind thinks or feels. I want to feel this. I want to be deeply rooted in this experience and feel it from every single level and layer, through every single emotion. I want to feel this. And the monkey mind and suit of flesh have no choice but to comply. And when you understand that in complying, you are actually gifting yourself with the opportunity to suffer less, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a really hard pill to swallow, isn't it? That's just a very, very hard pill to swallow. And maybe you're supposed to just chug it down. Kim, why are you sad for me? Why would you ever be sad for me? I'm not sad for me. Why would you ever be sad for me? I have a life that's perfectly designed to maximize my growth. I've experienced everything that I need to experience to date in order to maximize the potentiality of the gift that I offer. And maybe I should explain it in more tangible terms. The work that you guys see me do on live streams, especially the bio-spiritual side of things, that came about through tremendous suffering, barely functional depression, so much sadness. Had I not gone through that, I would have never shared that gift with any of you. I say that with absolute conviction. I would have never, ever, ever shared any of me with any of you, because I was content to stay hidden. I was content to question myself, question my abilities, question my integrity, question my technique, question my purpose, just question. And then about 2 years ago, I had this moment where I was like, I'm sick of this shit. I don't want to help anyone. I don't like helping with this physiological stuff and not knowing if I'm seeding them with something demonic, and I just don't want to. I don't want to. I'm not going to. And then Michael had a conversation with me and he was just like, you're going to have to. I'm like, no, I'm not. You can't force me. Because I don't give a shit how much you make me suffer. You can't force me. If I don't want to, I'm not going to. And I shouldn't have challenged my higher self in that way, but I did. I did because I needed to. It was the only way for me to grow. Literally the only way for me to grow. And I had partially agreed, and I was like, okay, send me a patient. It needs to be medically documented. I need actual medical documentation, diagnostic tests. I need x-rays. I need MRIs. Whatever the hell you're going to have me do, I want that shit medically documented. Send me a patient that will agree to this. So he sent me my mother. And through a series of extremely unfortunate events, I saw exactly how far I could take this. And even then, I wanted to hide. Because let me tell you, any other patient, I think it was 5 strokes. In the course of 1 month, 5 strokes, 2 heart attacks, a subarachnoid bleed, meaning her brain was hemorrhaging because of the medications they were giving her to make sure she didn't have any more heart attacks or strokes. I think anything short of my mother, I would have just tossed up my hands. Sorry, bro, I ain't making it. There's limitations to the human body, and I don't think you're meant to be here. But because the pain of having to let her go when I'm not ready to let her go, I was just like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And if we're going to be like really, really like raw and honest, I violated her sovereignty. In my selfishness, her parents had come to take her home. And I electrified them. And so they sent Michael to bind me. And I bound him. I bound her parents, her grandparents. I bound all her ancestors. And I created a field so impenetrable. And then I bound her to her body. And so 5 strokes, 2 heart attacks, and brain hemorrhaging. Every single one of them, I reversed. Every single one of them. Because in that moment of selfishness, because I'm just not a selfish person. I'm not a selfish person, like at all. I have no problem giving to others and going without. That's just at the core of who I am. That's me, you know. And short of my mother, I wouldn't have been able to do that. Because I can't bind her to her body and leave her tattered. And so I would reverse everything. Every single thing that should have ended her life, I reversed. And when I had learned all that I needed to learn in regards to my work, because everything was medically documented as I had requested. Everything. There is medical proof in existence that shows bleeds in her brain that are randomly gone. And so when I learned everything I needed to learn, and it was time for me to leave, and I couldn't, in exchange for that gift, I didn't anticipate dementia. I was kept so tired that I didn't anticipate the onset of dementia. And so to get me to leave, because after a certain point, it was no longer compassionate, it was just pure selfishness. It was no longer beneficial for my growth or her journey. She forgot who I was. And when I went to go reverse that, Michael got stern with me. And he told me, if I don't submit to the will of soul and leave, they'd permanently erase every single memory of me. Down to my birth. And so for however long, she remained in vessel. She wouldn't know that I ever existed. And that's when I left. And that's when I learned exactly how much love can heal. That's when I learned that love has no limitations. That love can do so much more than what any human mind could ever comprehend. And in the same breath, it can destroy in ways that nothing else can. And that's the truth of omnilove. That's what God is, omnilove. And so I left, and I disappeared for over 2 years. Over 2 years I was gone. And I couldn't reach out because I didn't want confirmation. I didn't want to confirm that I'd been forgotten. And after a certain amount of time, Michael was like, that fear is going to rob you. You're robbing yourself. And when I finally came back, well, I'm here now. And she's thriving. She's not bound to her body. She chooses to stay. This is the very reason I haven't done any energetic work on her. None. And it took a while. It took a very long while for me to really recognize even that selfishness, that moment of selfishness where I did that. It wasn't even a violation of her sovereignty. It was something that was agreed upon and I just didn't understand. And it was good that I didn't understand because everything needed to play out the way it played out. I needed to experience such a deep, deep, dark night of the soul. Such a deep one. I needed to go through that. And I didn't understand it then. And just because you don't understand something doesn't mean you don't need it, that you don't benefit from it later on when you have the opportunity to sort everything out, make sense of everything, and then understand. As humans, we're so fixated on this immediate gratification. I need to know now. I need to understand now. Well, you fucking are limited in your understanding until you experience the very pain that breaks open that ability to understand. And I didn't understand that. And as if that wasn't enough, I went through such a low point. I actually stopped eating for like 2 weeks. I didn't eat anything. And I got really, really emaciated. I was like a size 0. My hands looked like bones. My husband was like, you look like a bobblehead. You gotta eat. And I just couldn't. And I just couldn't. And even with that, later on, I gained the understanding that I was going through a massive, massive ascension process. And that depression was actually fasting. I was fasting. It was a spiritual purging. And in order for my coding to be rewritten to that extent, I needed my entire body's digestive process to be halted so that all the focus could go towards the rewriting of my genome. And if I didn't just submit to the will of soul and be like, you know what? I can't eat, so I can't eat, and I just don't want to eat. then I would have messed up that whole process. If I didn't do what I did with my mother, I wouldn't be who I am right now. If I didn't hurt in the way that I've hurt, then me choosing to remain soft in such a harsh world wouldn't have the same gravity as it does living the life that I've lived. And yes, looking back at those things, remembering those things, it still elicits a kind of pain that I don't know if it will ever heal. And I don't know if it's ever meant to heal. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, there are some wounds that just are not meant to heal. Instead, they're meant to be a source to trigger additional scar tissue to form. And in that additional tissue forming, that scar tissue, you are being fortified even more. I love that, Jen J. Your softness is your tensile strength. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It's like there's this part of me that I know can be so badass and strong and brute force in your face. I'm not backing down. I'm a warrior. I'm not tapping out. Break the fucking arm. I don't give a shit. And some people would be like, whoa, she's powerful. And it's like, honestly, that's conditioning. That's conditioning. If you want to see me at my most powerful, rewind this video a few minutes back, where I had no shame in admitting the things I decided to do and didn't understand at the time that it wasn't selfish, that it wasn't a violation of sovereignty, that my integrity is still intact. I didn't betray my mother in doing that. I learned difficult lessons through tremendous adversity. I grew and I cried and I grew and I cried and I grew and I cried. Do you notice how every time I cry, it grows me? Because the star seed within me is watered further. And the programming that's been forced upon me by society, by religion, by family, by culture, by all of that, every time you cry, more of it is washed away. And it's layer upon layer. So it's not going to just be one crying session. It's just one of those things that I'm recognizing, like, I don't think I need to heal. I just don't. And it's not me thinking that I'm not broken in some way, or me being in denial of the life that I've lived, the amount of traumas that I've been through. It's really this acknowledgement that no, those wounds exist for a reason. If they were meant to heal, they would have already healed. And maybe they'll heal later on, but I'm perfectly okay if they never do heal. I'm perfectly okay if every time I talk about these things, these moments in my life that were so huge of a milestone in my development, that it's okay. It's okay. Maybe every time I talk about those things and feel an uptick in my functional depression by remembering those events and I cry, maybe that's me purging just a little bit more of that unnecessary, unfounded guilt? Maybe. Maybe, but as starseeds, you know, you have functional depression for a reason. It's because you're awake and aware of what the fuck's going on in this world, what you volunteered to partake in. 194 Coco says, no prescription then. Do they suppress the process? My personal stance in regards to psychiatric meds, sometimes the pain can be so deafening in that silence that you do need some medication to suppress a little bit so you can begin sifting through things and making sense and begin finding the root causation of that effect. Do I believe medication should be taken indefinitely? No, I don't. Do I believe that you should just quit cold turkey? No, I don't. I believe you need to be very realistic about where this is coming from, what you did to co-create that circumstance that led to the sadness, and acknowledging pain is part of the learning. Pain is part of the healing. And once you get to that point where you kind of begin questioning and recognizing that the pain was part of the healing process, then you can begin considering talking to your doctor about lowering the medications and then eventually stopping completely. We have to allow ourselves to feel pain. Pain is the most greatest teacher you will ever have in this life. Pain is necessary. There's a very, very good reason why we are conditioned to fear pain. I'm not afraid to feel pain at all. And some people be like, damn, man, your life's been fucked up. Like, what the fuck? You went through all that shit? And I see it as, man, my higher self fucking knew what I would be doing in this life. And she was like, train her from infancy. Acclimate her. Train her from the start. And now I'm full grown and I'm like, yeah, it hurts. And we'll get through it. It's fine. Okay. The hardest lessons hurt the most, but they also provide the greatest potentiality for growth, for leveling up. So when I begin to feel pain over certain circumstance, I don't find myself shying away. I don't find myself like, oh my God, this is going to hurt. I find myself like, fuck yes, bring it on. Like, shit. Break me good, because after this, as much as I've been broken, that's how much more I'll be rebuilt. I'm not afraid to break. Because I have this knowing, at this point in my life, I have this very distinct, undeniable knowing that I will always be rebuilt. I will never be broken beyond what can be fixed, what can be rebuilt. And in that rebuilding, I will always, always, always be fortified so I don't break in that same way again. So that's that. That's that. So Scribble says, you looks like you have issue with your kidneys, or maybe I'm wrong. In one of my most recent previous lives, I died of kidney failure. And it still bleeds over into this life. So I don't technically have kidney issues, physiological kidney issues, but energetically, yes, I'm experiencing kidney problems. It carried over from a previous life. So yeah, I have no problem admitting that. I have no problem admitting that. fighting can be a defense mechanism. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Kim. And that's why I no longer see fighting, being able to fight, as a sign of strength. True strength, true power for me personally, it's in that knowing you can fight, recognizing that you can win this in so many different ways, and then acknowledging that you don't need to fight, you already won. I mean, I really need to prove it to the other person. It's enough that I already know that I could absolutely win this. No questions. You've been already beat like 5 or 6 times just in the past 3 minutes. I already played the scenarios in my head. Yeah, you've lost every single time. You know, this is a waste of my time. It's a waste of time. I don't need to prove anything to you. Like, if you want to believe that you stand a chance of beating me on this, that's fine. That's not my issue. I don't need to prove anything to you. And if you feel like you need to prove something to me, that's fine. That's still not my issue. I don't need you to prove anything to me. You are who you are, and I accept you just as you are. Do you see the power in that? Do you see the power in that mindset? And that doesn't come from ego. That comes from an acknowledgement of my ability to follow the strings and see exactly where each potentiality leads me. So not only is that strength rooted in self-knowing, in gnosis, which is what Jesus was preaching. Gnosis. This is the core of Jesus's work. When you know this, you no longer compete. Instead, you co-create. Instead, you rise back up to the level of Christ consciousness. And, you know, I'm just saying. So you guys, I'm gonna call it a night. Y'all already got me to cry. I wasn't planning on crying. Y'all got me to cry. I guess it was necessary. No, I don't guess it was necessary. I know it was necessary. So you guys, thank you so much for sharing this space with me, for joining me on my live, and just being open to hearing me share of myself. That is a very, very kind, loving, and beautiful thing to do. And I deeply appreciate you for it. I'm going to call it a night. Yeah, I'm going to call it a night. Exhausted. So I love you guys. If you're on my YouTube channel, please do subscribe, comment, like, whatever it is they do. If you're on my Facebook, follow my page. And I will see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.